All right, Gary Woodland won the U.S. Open Championship. Congratulations to that gentleman. Reid Forgrave is going to swing by, talk some NBA draft. And the Lakers, here in Los Angeles where I'm sitting, have a brand new addition to their team. All of that and more starts on Writer's Block with me, Bill Reiter, right now. It won't be official until at least July 1st, but the deed is done. The brow is coming to the West Coast. Anthony Davis will be a Los Angeles Laker. There's a lot to unpack from this, so let's dive into it. We'll start with the main part of this deal, the main guy that was going to have every other piece revolve around him one way or another. Anthony Davis, the next superstar for the Lakers to pair with LeBron James. And what do you want to say? The guy is, I think he is. He's a once-in-a-generational talent. In his career, averaging 24 points and 11 rebounds per game. His PER, player efficiency rating, his three-point shooting, all of it. The guy is an absolute machine. And presuming that he's healthy and that LeBron James, and I think LeBron does, has a few more years left in the tank, Anthony Davis is going to be, at a minimum, part of a tandem that makes the Lakers NBA champions right now, particularly with Kevin Durant out next year with that Achilles rupture and the window that creates in the West and really the rest of the NBA. But there was a haul for the Pelicans as well. Give David Griffin, their new general manager, a lot of credit. He was the GM in Cleveland during those LeBron years. It's a really nice pull for this organization. Brandon Ingram is a really nice young player. Lonzo Ball has obviously tons of upside. Both those guys former number 2 overall picks. I like Josh Hart as a player. And those first-round picks, which basically, in effect, were subbed out for Kuzma, who reportedly was offered at the trade deadline, those come with the kind of protections that David Griffin tends to get. You've got the number 4 overall pick this year, and you've got 2 other first-round picks that, in effect, have the most possible value spread, those 2 picks, over 3 other years. It is a strong win for both of these organizations. It really is. Let's start with the Lakers. As I said, they have a true championship window now, and it changes utterly the narrative of what had been a disaster, a dumpster fire, an incompetent run and reign for Jeannie Buss as the controlling owner, for Rob Pelinka as the GM, and obviously the Magic Johnson era over, but a continuation of that dysfunction that he was a part of. All of that now is set aside, not just on the floor, probably in that locker room with those disgruntled young players, but certainly here in Los Angeles, people are feeling the good vibes. All right, so here are the guys the Lakers have under contract for the time being in this upcoming season, presuming once the Anthony Davis trade officially goes through. You start with LeBron James, the guy's a stud, Anthony Davis. Mo Wagner's interesting. I love that Kuzma is still a part of that team. Every other guy on that roster does not matter. What the Lakers are going to do is they're going to fill out the remaining piece of this with veteran minimum guys, and then they're going to go after what could be a max player, depending on when the trade gets consummated and whether or not Anthony Davis is willing to move on from and waive that trade kicker for himself, a little under $5 million, somewhere between $23 million and $32 million. So, texting Lakers sources, they're going to target in this order Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker, and Jimmy Butler. And as much as Kyrie, for me, is sort of an eyebrow raiser, no pun intended with the brow, because of his time with LeBron James and the fact he gave up on both LeBron and Cleveland and that Boston team, it's not a secret that Kyrie has wanted to play with Anthony Davis, and we all know that Kyrie has won a championship with LeBron James. If they get any of those 3 guys, it's obviously going to be a big 3 that can carry this team really, really far. Now, for the Pelicans, I love the young core. You know, with the number 1 overall pick in the draft on Thursday, they're going to draft Zion Williamson. He'll be the future of that organization. And they have a projected starting 5 we're going to show you here that I think is pretty interesting, especially as a team to build on down the line. I love the possibility of Alonzo Ball, Jrue Holiday, Brandon Ingram, Zion, Jahlil Okafor team. Remember, you can maybe add Cam Reddish or DeAndre Hunter to that mix if they don't trade that number 4 overall pick. This is a team that is going to be potentially very, very good in the years ahead. And as much as we talk about the reality of LeBron James and now Kawhi Leonard being superstars that carry teams to championships, a lot of the teams that have won championships in the last 10, 15, 20 years, they drafted and they built their winners themselves, including the Lakers during those Kobe Bryant years. I know Shaq wasn't a Laker initially, but most teams go out there and do what now New Orleans has a chance to do grow this team. And by the way, David Griffin, who's very good at his job, gets to do this with his own key guys, especially Ingram. Here's something he said about Brandon Ingram earlier in the regular season when he was still David Griffin, just an NBA analyst, and Brandon Ingram was still a Laker. I want to read this to you. Quote, literally, this kid doesn't even have total control of his extremities yet. He's so long, he's got like that newborn deer lack of core strength. For Kyrie Irving to say that he thought Ingram was defensively tough for him is a huge statement by Kyrie, and it says a lot about the fact that Brandon is making big strides in his core strength. Earlier this year, I saw him get blown by like he was nailed to the floor at times against point guards. He's very quickly adjusting. Here's the key part. It's a big deal. He's 21 years old. It defies the imagination. How old was Victor Oladipo when he hit for Indiana? And Ingram is way more physically gifted than Oladipo. And that is a reality. A lot of guys don't find their groove till their third year and their superstar groove until their fourth year. If Ingram's healthy, and you presume the Griffin and the New Orleans wouldn't be making this trade if he didn't check out, he can be a very, very special player. And so, as much as people are celebrating in LA, and they should be, there's a good vibe in New Orleans too, going back to draft lottery night when David Griffin, when they landed that number 1 overall pick, that Zion and changes the complexity and the complexion of this entire ability to get rid of Anthony Davis, when Griffin, the GM, was feeling the good vibes.
We're going to be attracting best-in-class individuals. It's what we want to do, and it's what we want to be about. And this is certainly representative of that, right? I mean, it's something that we certainly are grateful for.
So here are the big winners. I think the man you just saw, David Griffin's a huge winner. He has a team to build around for the future, and he'll get the patience and the time as a new GM to see that thing to fruition. He's going to be in New Orleans for a long time, and assuming Zion's everything we think he can be, and I think he is, that New Orleans team down the road is going to be really, really interesting. And remember, they've got these other first-round picks from the Lakers coming down the line, and some of them could be very valuable. They coincide with LeBron being 40 years old. And Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers and friend of the show, we've had her on the program. I like Jeannie personally. I've said I think she can be a great owner, and we've certainly criticized her here on the show. She gets a huge win in Los Angeles. She gets to at least temporarily push back, if not erase this idea that she is over her head. She gets the team that she wants, a star-studded cast. For now, there could be another guy with 2 superstars who can legitimately chase a championship, and she did that by doing what sources have said Jeannie was going to do all along, deferring to LeBron James, hopefully in a managed way with some boundaries. Don't know about the boundaries, but deferring to LeBron got this done because Rich Paul, meaning LeBron, Rich Paul is LeBron James' agent, he's Anthony Davis' agent, but he's more than an agent, he's one of LeBron's closest friends. Rich Paul, LeBron James, they get what they want again. Was there tampering in the Anthony Davis situation this last regular season? Certainly looked like it. Is it unfair to New Orleans how they drove the price down? Certainly it was. They'll give Griffin credit for getting the deal that he got despite that situation. Does it mess with the league when a guy like Anthony Davis can basically decide through LeBron James and LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, he's going to go to one team and one team only, even when the Celtics and other groups wanted to make substantial offers? Yeah, it's not great for the game in a vacuum. But LeBron gets what LeBron wants, and that makes the Lakers big winners for at least a couple years. Remember, ignore the talk. I know he had his first serious injury. Ignore the talk that LeBron James is over the hill. It's just not true. 28, 8, and 7 last year. The guy wasn't trying. You can get on him for that if you want. But in terms of talent and now what's going to be effort, you're going to see it. LeBron James, the version we've come to expect, we've seen every year for years now. It's going to happen next year, paired with Anthony Davis, and that is a scary thought. And just to prove, not that we need to, but just a reminder, LeBron James, people that are that powerful, some would say arrogant, tend to show us what they're thinking well in advance, including when in the All-Star Games draft with Giannis and LeBron, LeBron was pretty happy to joke about Anthony Davis being his teammate.
With my first pick in the second round, I'm going with Anthony Davis.
You sure you want him to be your teammate?
I'm very sure of that.
Isn't that tampering?
No.
The Lakers are championship contenders for the next 2 years. We'll see what they add to make that more likely. The betting odds have varying degrees as the Lakers as the favorites right now. And this is a New Orleans team, a Pelicans team, that has the chance. You got to draft right, and you got to develop young talent the right way, but they have a chance to be very, very good in the 2 to 5 year range, which was the best they were going to do considering Anthony Davis basically said to them, I'm leaving, deal with it, and trade me to this one team and this one team only. For fans, for you and me, It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's going to be really interesting to see whether AD and LeBron can get it done and what this New Orleans team becomes down the line. I'll ask Reid Forgrave, who covers the NBA here at CBS Sports HQ, about this, but I also want to get into the draft itself with one of our draft gurus. Reid's going to join me on Writer's Block here in Los Angeles, California, when we come back to CBS Sports HQ after these messages. All right, welcome back into the show. It's Writer's Block here on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Bill Reiter from Los Angeles, California. Let's go to a top 5 American city as described by our next guest, Reid Forgrave, who covers the NBA college hoops for us here at the network based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hello, Mr. Forgrave.
Hey, man, it's summer now. This is when Minneapolis shines. I suggest all you, Los Angelinos dealing with the June gloom, come and deal with the beauty that is Minneapolis in June. Come on.
There is a June gloom. It is overcast, but everyone is smiling here, Reid, because Anthony Davis is going to be a Los Angeles Laker. We just unpacked a lot of particulars of this trade and what it means for both organizations. What are the main takeaways that struck you when the news came down?
Look, if you're Rob Pelinka, you make this trade every time, obviously. To be able to pair a LeBron James, who is toward the end, maybe out of his prime, but still a top 5 player in the NBA, with a guy in Anthony Davis who is entering his prime, top 5 player, you do it. But now you got likely $23 million in cap room, depending how things go, depending whether Anthony Davis says no thanks to the trade bonus, depending whether they can postpone the trade until the end of July or if they have to complete it on July 6th. But it sounds like they're going to have $23 million in cap room. And right now, they got about, 3 rotation players? This is not going to be an easy job for Rob Pelinka this offseason. It's not like he has a great track record from last offseason as far as completing a roster to surround LeBron James with the right players. So you make this trade every time, but I do think there's such a small margin of error for the Lakers. Call me crazy, Bill, and maybe this is bordering on hot take territory. Unless things go really, really well over the next few years, we could remember this trade in a similar way that we remember that Nets Celtics trade, just because the Pelicans got so much, and these picks that they're getting from the Lakers, we don't know what these picks are going to look like 3-5 years down the road. But if the Lakers don't have the ultimate success under these guys, this trade could be a disaster.
I'll say this, just maybe in pushing back a little bit on that, Reid. Maybe one difference being, you pointed out, Anthony Davis entering his prime. Those core guys for the Celtics were a decade older.
Sure.
And you said it, $23.75 million, worst case scenario in the cap for the Lakers. If, and it sounds like that's not going to happen, but if they push the trade back to the end of July and Anthony Davis waives that trade kicker, could go all the way up to $32 million. On the other side of things is a Pelicans organization that has a lot of pieces and is going to be able to put them now around Zion Williamson, who they will draft with the number 1 overall pick in a few days, just in a vacuum, or with the pieces we know he's going to have playing with him. But what's the right read, hyperbole aside, Reid Forgrave, on Zion and what he can be in New Orleans?
You can't take hyperbole out of the mix when it comes to Zion Williamson. He is hyperbole, right? He's the best, or at least most exciting player to come out of the draft with the most potential since Anthony Davis. The Pelicans got obviously extremely lucky here. What he could be in the NBA is, on the offensive end, he could be a Julius Randle, and on the defensive end, he could be a Draymond-ish type player. The potential of Zion Williamson, when you think of a player comparison, people toss out Charles Barkley or Blake Griffin. What I toss out is he's going to be Zion Williamson. We really have not seen a player like this in the NBA ever. He's built like a star defensive lineman, and yet he's got a 42-inch vertical. My only 2 worries about Zion, one is the 3-point shooting. It's not there yet, and we don't know if it's ever going to get there. The other one is, how does that body hold up in the NBA? But I tell you what, right now, looking at Zion and looking at the pieces surrounding him, I'm not sure if this team is going to be great immediately. I think there's an outside chance they could be a playoff team in the stacked West, but they are going to be one of the most exciting teams to watch in the entire NBA, like the ultimate League Pass team this coming year.
All right, Reid, let's go full Rick and Morty counterpart fringe for you old school television fans and do a couple alternate universe questions here. Alternate universe number 1, David Griffin decides to keep the number 4 overall pick that he acquired in this Anthony Davis trade, who will he draft, do you think, at number 4 on Thursday?
You've heard some people toss out the Jarrett Culver. I don't like that idea because Jarrett Culver, he's not the shooter that you would need alongside Zion. There are two guys, two very different picks that I would go in, directions that I would go in, that I think would pair really well with Zion. One is Darius Garland from Vanderbilt. The guy is, I hate making Steph Curry comparisons. Those are always the worst comparisons. Even with Trae Young, that was a bad comparison. But Darius Garland does have a lot of Steph-like traits. He has a Steph-like body, for better and for worse. But he is the most Steph-like shooter in this draft. The guy can score from all 3 levels, dynamic athlete. There are obviously the concerns with the injury, but I've talked to people close to Darius Garland. They say he's at 100%. I mean, what do they say now, a few days before the draft? But obviously, this guy has so much talent. It wouldn't shock me if he is someone that could be the best point guard in this draft. And the second one, you see him right there. DeAndre Hunter, the best defender in this draft. And can you imagine a team that would have Lonzo Ball, elite defensive guard, Drew Holiday, one of the best defensive guards in the NBA, Zion Williamson, who projects to be an awesome defender, and then DeAndre Hunter, who proved himself on the biggest of stages this past April in the Final Four, a guy who has grown exponentially year to year in his 3 years in college. DeAndre Hunter, I think, would fit so well in what they could try to do with the Pelicans. Right now, though, this team is just like a blank slate. And if you're David Griffin, you got to be so excited at whatever you can get with that number 4 pick, pairing it with what you already have. Lots and lots of potential in this team.
All right, Reid, alternate universe question number 2 then. Let's say that we're in the timeline where David Griffin makes the decision that he wants to package that number 4 pick and get more picks or whatever it is that he wants. What are some teams that you think might be eyeing number 4, and who might they be trying to target if they can get that pick from New Orleans?
I mean, I think the Atlanta Hawks are one interesting team. They do have 8 and 10, and I don't think that's a team that wants to be loaded with as many young players as they're going to be loaded with. So they can maybe trade for that pick, get another veteran, and then trade both the 8 pick and the 10 pick for it. And to me, the Hawks could use an elite defender. Someone like DeAndre Hunter could fit in perfectly there. Frankly, if the Hawks are picking at number 8, someone like Cam Reddish, really a boom-bust type pick, could fit in really, really well with that team. So the Hawks are one team that I'd look at who'd be great with that number 4 pick. I mean, another team's the Boston Celtics. The Celtics have so many draft assets that they can trade, so much uncertainty around that team. Maybe, ironically, they don't get in on the Anthony Davis trade, but they kind of get in on the back end of the Anthony Davis trade.
All right, Reid, a couple more for you. You were covering the NBA Finals for CBS Sports HQ. You were asking great questions at the press conference of the real poppin' pink tie, which I see you did not honor us with today. I want to ask you a Toronto-inspired question. That Raptors team, first team in NBA history to win an NBA championship without a lottery pick on that team. So we know the guys that are the big names. Are there any non-lottery picks or likely non-lottery picks that you think have the upside, the potential to a few years from now be real contributors in whatever NBA franchise they're playing for?
Yeah, I mean, let me give you a couple. One of them is Romeo Langford from Indiana. This guy, his stock went so far down this season in Indiana, but he played most of the season with a hurt thumb. He had a ligament damage in his thumb, just had surgery. I saw him at the NBA Combine, talked with him for CBS Sports HQ a month ago. He had a cast on his thumb. But the guy is maybe one of the better scorers in this draft. We didn't get to see all of that at Indiana, but he could become Chris Middleton type player, a guy who just has a lot of offensive versatility. And then another one is Ball. Look, you don't have to go into all the bust potential with Ball. We know all about that. I'm just not sure if he can handle contact. But the best version of Ball could look like, a Kristaps Porzingis player. He shot in the mid-30s from three-point land, and as a guy who's like 7'2" with a 7'8" wingspan, excellent shot blocker, can do a lot of things with the ball on the offensive end. The potential for him, and again, probably the biggest boom-bust player in this entire draft, but the potential for him is so high.
All right, Reid, last one for you. You asked Kawhi Leonard, and you and I have discussed this. Kawhi is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a puzzle. I mean, the guy is so hard to read. Anyone who says they know exactly what's going on with Kawhi Leonard is a liar, unless it's Kawhi's uncle or someone very, very close to Kawhi. But you asked him a question after the championship, and he gave a pretty thoughtful answer. And I know you've been around that Raptors organization throughout this postseason a good amount, talking with people. So I understand it's a guess, but best guess, where do you think Kawhi Leonard's playing next year?
Yeah, it's 100% a guess. I got to be honest, Bill, there's something in my gut that tells me he's going to stay in Toronto. What I asked him after they won the title was, how has the past 2 years, past 18 months, really changed him as a man? And how it's changed the way he looks at life and his fate. And he gave such a thoughtful answer. Everyone thinks of Kawhi just being like, oh, I'm a fun guy. I think there's so much depth to him that people just haven't gotten to because he's so private. And what he said was really telling, that he just wants his health. His health is one of the most important, and that he's realized that he just needs to be true to himself in this process. He felt that he really got dragged through the mud at the end of that Spurs tenure. People talking about him quitting on the team, faking an injury. And when he came to Toronto, he made no secret of it. That wasn't where he wanted to go. That team wasn't on his short list. But the Toronto Raptors, not just because they won the championship, but that's a big part of it, they made the perfect pitch to this young man. A guy who, what he says is he just wants to win. What he says is he wants to be treated like a superstar. He's been treated like a superstar, not just within that organization, but within that city, within that whole country. Kawhi has everything that he wants in the city of Toronto, except good weather and beaches. So if he goes to the Clippers, I guess it's not that shocking. But from a basketball perspective, he struck gold in the place that he least expected it.
Reid Forgrave, as always, buddy, thanks for the insight. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, from Reid Forgrave to a little golf, Gary Woodland won the U.S. Open yesterday. We'll go inside the numbers on his improbable and impressive victory when we come back to the show here in just a minute. All right, welcome back into the show. It's Writer's Block here from Los Angeles, California. I'm Bill Reiter. We're going to go inside the numbers on the latest U.S. Open champion from Pebble Beach yesterday. Gary Woodland gets it done, and we start with the number 13. Woodland shot a staggering 13 under par on his way to that victory at Pebble Beach. It is the third lowest score to par in U.S. Open history, behind both Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy, who shot 16 under in their wins. Next up is the number 3. Woodland has now finished in the top 10 in 3 of his past 4 majors. Prior to 2018, he had never finished in the top 10 of a major championship. So obviously he was trending in this direction. How about the number 7? Before this weekend, Gary Woodland had at least a share of the 54-hole lead in a tournament 7 times without ever converting that lead into a tour victory. What a time to break that streak. The number 1 is next up here on Inside the Numbers. Since 2014, Woodland had only one PGA Tour victory. Before this weekend, it was the 2018 Waste Management Open. Because why not? And finally, 80-1. Congrats to you if you bet on Gary Woodland entering the U.S. Open. Woodland was 80-1 to win this week, and his odds of the next major aren't much better. He currently sits at 60-1 to win the British Open next month. He was utterly incredible. And I'll just say this very, very briefly. Brooks Koepka, who has won 4 of the last 9 that he has played in majors and has finished second, including yesterday at the U.S. Open in 2 of them, was awesome and was a machine. And yet Woodland was able to stare that down, to be poised down the stretch, and to time and again scramble for par. Not a great scrambler statistically over the course of his career or this PGA season, but Gary Woodland did it when you had to do it at Pebble Beach, at the U.S. Open. It was a hell of a tournament. It was a hell of a performance, and good for that guy. Thank you for hanging out here on the show. We've got lots of great guests lined up for you throughout the week, including some guys who will be drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. We're efforting those folks. Stay tuned for who they'll be. Writer's Block, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. Jim Bowden's going to be on the program tomorrow to talk some baseball. I'm Bill Reiter. Appreciate you being here. We're going back down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where they're going to catch you up on everything that is trending in the world of sports right here on your home for streaming sports, CBS Sports HQ.